What if instead of complaining and whining constantly about Planned Parenthood's kooky sexuality education and everything that the World Health Organization and the CDC promotes about healthy sexuality and healthy youth sexuality and all this disgusting vile and bile in the school system, okay? What if there were alternatives? What if Christians were actually creating good alternatives that elevated and strengthened marriage as the institution for human flourishing within the realm of which sexual activity should occur? Because now you have a mom and a dad who have committed to one another so that the children born from that union will actually have two adults, a mom and a dad, that care for them and that are committed to them. Yeah, exactly. That's how societies are built. It's about time we have people building alternatives and providing them to schools, to families, to churches. That's exactly what our friend and guest Scott Phelps has done with the National Marriage Campaign. And they talk about inspiring youth to prepare for healthy future marriage, okay? This is being used in school districts all around the country now, including by churches and homeschool families. So much so that SECUS and the ACLU and some of these big groups are coming after Scott Phelps and his team with his curriculum success sequence program and his organization, the National Marriage Campaign. If this guy's an enemy of the ACLU and SECUS, he's a friend of ours. I think you'll enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the Seth Gruber Show. Scott, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, good to see you, Seth.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for coming on. You haven't been exposed to our audience before, and man, we just hit it off so great at an event you were at recently for the White Rose Resistance, actually, in the 1916 Project, and the things you were sharing with me, brother, and how long you've been in the fight against Planned Parenthood's sex education in the schools, which you may have heard me say, I call it's one of the liturgical arms of the religion of humanism. It's how they disciple American children through the public education system with our taxpayer dollars into their vision of what human flourishing looks like. And that vision looks like orgies, gay sex, transgenderism, gender theory, multiple abortions, and how to circumvent the law and get an abortion without parental consent. Oh, and also critical race theory. And so you've developed these things that is such an incredible way to counter this educational revolution. And it's not explicitly Christian, but it's all of the Judeo-Christian creeds, and it's all the facts and science and data about why keeping sex for marriage is the best thing for you, not just physically in terms of health, but sociologically, morally, economically, politically. Yeah. And I was so blown away with it because not enough people are fighting back on that. Well, I mean, we need to abolish the Department of Education, but conversation for another time. In the meantime, we've got to work on getting better curriculum to America's youth. So I was just so excited to have you on. You're with the National Marriage Campaign. Why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit first, brother?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much. And yeah, when I heard your presentation and your description of the 1916 project, which I told you was brilliant, I thought it was just fantastic. And I think that what you're doing to elevate the public discourse and to help people understand what's happening is so critical. So grateful for the White Rose Resistance. I think I texted you. We were in Berlin recently, my wife and I, on a tour with Pastor Erwin Lutzer, and saw some of the sites there of the Holocaust. And wow, the White Rose Resistance, the whole thing, it just blows me away. And I really appreciate the fact that you're lifting that up for a new generation of American youth to see and to be inspired by, right? To have courage, to step up, to speak out. And so, yeah, our whole mission, as you have indicated, is really to provide schools and parents and churches an alternative to a Planned Parenthood sex education curriculum, which is the primary foundational curriculum in our schools. I think most people are unaware of the foundations of sex education, that what has really metastasized into our school system was planted in the 1960s during the sexual revolution. 1964, the advent of SIECUS, Mary Calderon. SIECUS sort of spun out of Planned Parenthood to work toward really infiltrating the public school system with Planned Parent. Sex education could be called Planned Parenthood classes, really. And that is what has happened around the country. And we just believe that schools should have an alternative to that shouldn't be the one and only message that our kids are getting, which is creating a lot of confusion in the hearts and minds of our young people. What our young people need to hear is a clearly reasoned positive presentation on the benefits of reserving all sexual activity for the context of marriage. And that's what we offer. And I'm telling you what, Seth, kids, when they have the opportunity to learn these things, they're blown away by it. They're like, oh my goodness, where have you been all my life? I've never heard anything like this before. And that's our whole mission, is to really flip the script and overturn what is taught in our schools so that kids have a chance to hear the other side, which is a healthy, wholesome, beautiful message. And it's the only way, I'm going to argue, to restore a culture of marriage and family, which is so critical to addressing all of the social pathologies in our culture, particularly abortion. So I know that, your work is to highlight the horrors of abortion, and I'm right there with you in that. And I think that the best way to address the problem is to reach a new generation of American youth with a clear, positive presentation on hope for the future, marriage and family. If our kids can gain a sense of not just a sense of hope for, but also see a clear pathway how to get to marriage and family, you're going to see dramatic decreases in the rates of abortion in America.
Yeah, I mean, bro, why don't more pastors and youth pastors talk about that? This is something I've been wondering for a long time. It not only are most of our pastors and churches too cowardly to preach against abortion, but when's the last time you've seen a major pastor with a platform and a national reach beyond just his congregation, which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of the local church. We need more small local churches being faithful and not shiny, bright objects with big YouTube subscribers. But when's the last time you've seen like a big church, a pastor with a big platform preaching from the pulpit that if you're living and sleeping with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you're in sin? You need to repent this morning, brother and sister. And you need to live the way God is calling you to live in purity before him. Not just because it's the best for you, in certain, like utilitarian wise or something, but because God told you to. And so now we get warriors like yourself who are developing the kind of good curriculum to get in front of children. And I think in large part because our churches and pastors won't talk about it. But I'm grateful for you, bro.
Well, I can't tell you how many times, thank you, and likewise, I can't tell you how many times I have sat across the table with Christian parents who have said to me, Scott, I don't know what happened. She went to youth group. She was in, went on the summer missions trip. She was involved in church she just moved in with her boyfriend. And I think it's because we haven't done a good job of proactively educating our young people in schools and in churches and even in the home. Look, things that I grew up understanding that were cultural norms are gone now. And those of us who are a little bit older can't assume that the younger generation has the same sets of presuppositions. They don't. It's been obliterated. Thanks to Planned Parenthood and their allies. And so what we have to do is we've got to rebuild that, and we've got to be intentional and proactive in teaching this to our kids. And you're right. In terms of churches, what I tell people all the time is we have much greater reception teaching our programs in public schools across the country than we do churches.
Wow.
And, you asked the question why. I can't give you an answer to that. But I will tell you that I'm agreeing with you.
You get less support and less excitement from pastors and churches with your curriculum.
Without question.
Than you do from public education systems or school districts that are using it. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I'm going to ask you more about this in just 1 second, Scott, because I want all of our listeners. We got pastors, Christian lay people, parents, pregnancy resource center directors who I think are really going to benefit from what you're doing. And I want you to tell them all about it with your success sequence program and other things you're doing. But you just said something a few seconds ago. You said the curriculum and agenda that Planned Parenthood and its allies have created. I think that's important. I just want to elevate something here so people understand what you're fighting against, that you're really going upstream from where the bad things started and trying to pour like good solution into the watering hole that flows downstream and affects the rest of the culture. Just a point of fact here. This is very important. Okay. When the sex ed revolution began sending experts to testify before state boards of education, boards of education, so that they would change some of the obscenity laws that wouldn't have allowed what is called comprehensive sex ed into the schools. So the sex ed revolution sends their quote unquote experts to testify before state boards of education. Guess what? All of those sex ed experts were on the payroll of Penthouse magazine. Let me say that again, listener. The sex ed experts who were lobbying and testifying before state boards of education to change the obscenity laws so that Planned Parenthood's pornographic comprehensive sexuality education could become the norm in public tax-funded public schools were on the payroll of Penthouse. The pornography industry was employing the sex ed experts to change the laws so that Planned Parenthood and its allies, which included Playboy magazine and Penthouse, etc., Hustler, could get their kind of curriculum in front of America's children. Wow. Have you ever heard the phrase, Scott, conflict of interest? So anyways, go ahead.
No, and I had never even heard that before, but what I do know is the difficulty has always been for us in raising awareness of what sex education is doing is, like, if you write an article about it, you can't write in the article what's in the curriculum because they won't print it. It's not fit to print, right? I mean, you're seeing this now with parents who will go to a school board and try to read what's in their school, and they're like, stop it. You can't.
They turn the mic off.
Yeah.
They turn the mic off, yep. Wild.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were telling me my mic was off. No, they won't. They can't hear it. Because it really is inappropriate. And that's the crazy thing. It's inappropriate to read in a school board meeting or to print in the local newspaper. And yet somehow this is what we're teaching kids in schools. And again, we just decided early on, this is our 20th anniversary. We've been doing this for a while. We've reached over 2 million kids around the country. But we just decided that rather than go around saying, hey, stop doing what's harmful, we would come up with a solution for schools to say to schools, hey, listen, here's something you can do that's much better. It's objectively better. It's factually better, inarguably better. And that's the power of our program, Seth. It's totally objective. It's not me. It's not Scott Phelps. It's not my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. When I do teacher training seminars for educators around the country, it's not me. What I'm doing is simply telling them what is, not what I think. And so laying out the objective framework, and we believe that educators have a duty and an obligation responsibility to teach teens objective, factual truths about these things rather than their own personal opinion or Planned Parenthood's opinion. We think they should know the truth. And that is, if you reserve all sexual activity for the context of marriage, that is factually, objectively, provably the safest, healthiest option for. Look, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it, but you have to know it. And once you know it, now you actually have a choice. And so this is what's so critical. And marriage, the reason we're the National Marriage Campaign is because marriage is at the center of it. Our message isn't sex is bad. We don't believe that. We believe that sex is good and that reserved for the context of marriage is a great good. And so what we want to do is provide young people with a very clear, positive presentation and understanding of sex in the context of marriage. Now, listen, think about this. kids today are exposed to sex through the media. You probably weren't aware of that, Seth, just letting you know. That kids are exposed to sex through the media. It's on their phone, it's on their computer, it's on their TV, the cable, everywhere. But it's not just that they're exposed to sex. How much of the sex that they're exposed to communicates to them any sense of sex within the context of a marriage relationship? And the answer is it just isn't anywhere.
Right.
And so they've got this really warped sort of view of sex, and all they've ever known is recreational sex outside the context of marriage with multiple partners, using contraception, of course.
Right.
And so that's the message that they've always received. And so when we go in and we say, time out, could we sort of lay it out for you in a very clear way? They're like, oh my goodness, where have you been all my life? And the reason the program works so well is because it comports with their nature. Everything that we're saying is true. And they're like, oh my goodness, this just, yes. That
Right.
tastes really, really good. Could I have some more of that? What's that called? And you're like, that's called truth. I know you've never tasted that before, but let me give you some more of that truth because it tastes really good, doesn't it?
Yep. And so tell us about your programs and what you're doing. What's your program called? Are a lot of people using it? Has it been successful? Why do people like it? Tell us more about what you're up to.
Well, like I said, now I've been doing this for 20 years. We've had 2 million teens have gone through the program. We call it the Success Sequence Program. It's a series of curriculum that schools can use as a health class supplement. When you get to this area, when you're going to teach something, here's what you can teach. And so the success sequence that researchers have identified, a number of researchers have done so. The latest, Brad Wilcox and Wendy Wang at the University of Virginia have done a great job of laying this out. But the success sequence is essentially 3 simple steps, right? If we can help our young people get an education, get a job, and then marry prior to having children, chances are statistically they're going to do well. They're not going to be on welfare. They're not going to be on government dependency. They're not going to be under poverty. So what we just need to do is lay that out for them and help them understand why reserving all sexual activity and childbearing for the context of marriage is going to be better for them, better for their spouse, better for their children, better for their community, better for their culture. Look, so much of the cultural decay that we witness today is the result of the breakdown of marriage and family. 40% of American children born outside the context of marriage, without a father to raise them and care for them and to teach them right from wrong. And so that's where you have the breakdown. And if you're going to address that breakdown, how are you going to do it? I argue that the most effective way to do that is to reclaim in the education system that space dedicated to teaching these things to our young people. That's what we're doing.
Yep. That's good, bro. I like it. Now, I have to imagine that SECUS just loves you.
BFF.
Planned Parenthood must love what you're doing. You're starting to enter into what they consider their territory. Let me kind of bolster exactly what you're up against here. People sometimes don't believe me when I say these things. Like, Planned Parenthood, yeah, they're the largest provider of comprehensive sexuality education in America. They admit that on their own website.
They do.
One of the presidents of Planned Parenthood in the 80s, Pamela Mar-a-Lago, Scott, once said, now that we've taught our children what to do in the front seat, we have to teach them what to do in the back seat.
Yeah.
So, we're not joking around here, guys. This has been the, openly celebrated agenda by Planned Parenthood for decades, is we are going to teach your children radical sexual libertinism with the veneer of health and science. And if you don't like it, shut up. And if you come to a school board meeting and you get a little upset, maybe Merrick Garland will just label you a domestic terrorist if you come for our liturgies, our secular liturgies. And so you told me something a bit ago off air that was shocking about some of the let's call them the liberal establishments don't really like you. Tell us some of the response from some of these groups such as SECUS.
Oh yeah, we've had, over the years, like I said, we've been doing this for a long time. So over the years, we have had, a number of different challenges from SECUS, from Planned Parenthood, from the ACLU, from different organizations that really want to stop it. They want the monopoly. They have the monopoly. They want the monopoly. See, the way it is now is, and I don't think I would say this because I have the opportunity to spend my time really doing professional development training seminars for teachers. And so teachers who have been teaching a sex ed program will come to our thing and it's like, oh my goodness, this is so much better. I don't think that most teachers even realize the genesis of the programs that they're teaching, right? I mean, the seeds of this were planted long ago and they've bore in deeply into the system. And it is systemic. It is systemic. And they've got everybody. They've got the educational institutions. They've got the medical institutions. They've got the media institutions. And so it has really, as I said, metastasized to the point that it is so dominant, this sex education message, which is, by the way, a codification of the sexual revolution of the 1960s. What was the sexual revolution? The sexual revolution said, you don't have to be married. You can get yourself some contraception, smoke dope, and have sex with a whole bunch of people. It'll be great. What could go wrong? And that was the sexual revolution. Woodstock, 1969, right? Make love, not war. Free love. Free from what? Free from the constraints of marriage. You don't have to be married. You can just use contraception, have sex with a whole bunch of people. And since that time, non-marital births, for example, have skyrocketed. STD rates have skyrocketed. And what sex education is 1964. Let's start teaching these concepts in our schools. Even today, in schools across America, sex education is typically about all the different types of contraception that you can use without any reference to the context of marriage. There just isn't any. I was on a TV show a while ago called The Doctors, and I was debating a sex ed person, and she said here's what they always say, Seth, because here's the fig leaf. Abstinence is the fig leaf that they will use. Planned Parenthood will say they teach abstinence. There isn't a school in America that will say we don't teach abstinence. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everyone will say it. They use it as a fig leaf. What do they mean? And so this lady that I was debating, she said, oh, we teach abstinence too. And I said, yeah, but you don't teach anything like what we teach because we're teaching kids abstinence until marriage and helping them prepare for. She said, yeah, you're right. We don't say anything about marriage. Okay, so that's the point. And I would say this, even a program that's a quote unquote abstinence program from a pregnancy care center, for example, if it's not centered on marriage, it's missing the boat completely. Because everything that we're doing is about helping young people understand and appreciate the proper relationship of sex within the context of marriage. If you're not saying marriage, what are you saying? But what are you saying? Yep. So it's necessary that we have a very clear. I go so far as to say this. We're not a pregnancy prevention program. We're a pregnancy promotion program. We don't have any interest in a message that says babies are bad things to be avoided. We think babies are wonderful, beautiful things to be celebrated, and that pregnancy is not a problem to be avoided, but a hope to be cherished. We want young people to understand that pregnancy is a beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing. In fact, it's so good, save it for the context of a marriage relationship so that baby will be loved and cared for by a married mom and dad. That's a message that our kids do not get today. And it's why we exist.
Yep. Wow. Yep. That's good, bro. Strong marriages, strong society, strong families. And that's how you hand the next generation this country is healthy, well-adjusted citizens who were loved and cared for as children because their mom and dad decided to codify the only relationship that can protect them, marriage. Shocker, huh? I see why you're a domestic terrorist. Now, one of the things we hear from the sex ed revolutionaries, Scott, is that no, you see, they're going to do it anyways. So we just have to teach kids how to do it safely. And you're a bigot if you teach abstinence until marriage because, that's a Christian value and you shouldn't be enforcing your Christian values through the public education system onto the next generation. So that's wrong. Okay, so we should just teach people all the ways to do sex stuff, and we'll have cartoon picture drawings of it, and we'll have them put condoms on a banana, and we'll practice this in school, and then we'll tell them about all their contraceptive options, so that they don't get pregnant when they're a teenager. And then if they do, hey, our comprehensive sex education shows them where to get their local abortion. But you should support this, Scott, we're told, because don't you see, if you teach contraception, it actually lowers the unwanted pregnancy rate and therefore lowers the abortion rate. Follow the science, you stupid rube. And so this will actually save more babies, and you should want that because you're pro-life. That's what I've heard. What do you say to those people? But first, thank you to our friends and sponsor of the Seth Gruber Show, Every Life Diaper. Every Life Diaper. Every life matters. And most of the baby companies and diaper companies rhetorically support on social media the abortion industry, and some of them pay for their employees to go to pro-abortion states to kill their kids. Woke capitalism is very dangerous, and it is injecting steroids into the culture of death. It needs to be destroyed. The way you do that is you fight with your wallet. Fight with your wallet by getting your diapers at everylife.com. Everylife.com, promo code Seth10. Seth 10 for 10% off your first order, and let them know that we sent you, and then you support the Seth Gruber Show, the White Rose Resistance, and you help build a culture of life through a marketplace of people who fight with their dollars to defund and bankrupt woke corporatism and establish a conservative corporatism that values that which matters most. Babies, the next generation. Everylife.com, tell your nursery at your church, tell your pregnancy resource center, and tell your loved ones who are having babies to get their diapers at everylife.com, promo code Seth10. Thank you, Everylife, for supporting the Seth Gruber Show.
Well, you've got a lot there, but yes, you're exactly right. And that is what we deal with. We absolutely deal with that. And first of all, the data belies that. It's just not true. So according to the CDC, most people will be shocked to learn perhaps that according to the Centers for Disease Control, 73% of high school students are not currently sexually active, according to the CDC. That is to say, the vast majority of high school students are not doing it. It's a myth. Now, even if they were sexually active, that doesn't justify withholding from them helpful guidance on the healthiest lifestyle. See, teaching the benefits of reserving all sexual activity for marriage is providing them with the optimal context for sexual activity to occur. It's the healthiest message. And even if they were predominantly sexually active, which they're not, according to the CDC, you would still want to make sure that they have the opportunity to learn that message. And the contraceptive message, my goodness, it is out there. They have done a fantastic job with the contraceptive message. Actually, teen pregnancies are at an all-time recorded low. They keep going down because contraception is up and fewer students are involved in sexual activity. But the contraceptive message is out there, and they are using contraception, sexually active teens are, and it is reducing the birth rate. And the United States birth rate now is, I think, at an all-time low of about 1.7 in terms of fertility rate, which is terribly low and shockingly so. You need to have 2.1 birth rate to maintain your population. We are only maintaining our population through immigration. And the European nations are all dying as a result of dramatic declines in fertility rates. And this is why the message of the anti-pregnancy message, whether through contraception or abstinence even, is not a helpful message. We don't want to be teaching kids that pregnancy is a bad thing to be avoided. That message has been out there now for 40 years or so, and our fertility rates are showing it. And we're going to be in very serious trouble if we don't turn it around.
Yep. Well, one of the kind of myths regarding the whole sex ed contraception messaging that I think a lot of people miss and don't get right is they say, well, it lowers the abortion rate, it lowers the unwanted pregnancy rate, and so that's why you should support it. But if young women are using contraception and they do get pregnant, For a while now, many of those abortions that would happen would not even be reported. And so it is almost statistically impossible to be able to connect Planned Parenthood's contraception programs foisted onto public high school students and provided free of charge. Pick it up at your local Planned Parenthood clinic with a decrease in abortion as a reason for pro-lifers to support Planned Parenthood's contraception sex education, when most of those abortions that would be happening now are the RU46 abortion pill, which wouldn't even get reported through the mandatory reporting institutions that would then report those figures to the institutions that would collect how many abortions happened at the national level on an annual basis. It's ridiculous. There's no way that they can even claim that their programs are successful. You've mentioned a program in Seattle before. Do you want to talk about that, showing exactly how ineffective some of these comprehensive sexuality education Planned Parenthood approved programs are?
Yeah, it really is pretty remarkable. I think I sent you the research report from the federal government, Office of Adolescent Health, that did research on some of these federally funded sex education programs. And it documented one program in the Seattle area, a Planned Parenthood program, in which the teen girls in the Planned Parenthood program had higher rates of teen pregnancy than the girls who weren't in the Planned Parenthood program. So here you've got $4 million of taxpayer funding going to Planned Parenthood to teach sex ed, and the result is higher rates of teen pregnancy as a result. So yeah, just a complete failure, and that's one example. There are a number of others. There's many of those studies that showed no difference, but some of them actually went backwards, like that one. And then I also sent you one where it said it was a research report called, and it was showing the quote unquote evidence of success of some of these sex ed programs. And the one that I sent you showed that that the program was successful because it quote unquote mitigated the decrease in condom usage over time. Now you have to sort of scratch your head for a minute and go, wait, what? Okay, the program, watch this. The program was successful. It's a good program. Yay, team. Because why? What did it do? It mitigated the decrease. And so in other words, kids were using condoms because we taught them to use condoms, but they used them less and less over time. But if they went through our program, the lessening wasn't as bad as if they didn't go through. I mean, it's a crazy standard, but the government actually publishes that as evidence of a successful program. And so, we have a headline culture, and you have to get beyond the headline. And the headline is, program shows evidence of success. Okay, well, could we open it and read it? Oh my goodness, that's what you mean by success? I mean, give me a break. And yet this happens all the time, Seth. It happens all the time. And this is what we're up against because, look, talk about swimming upstream, you mentioned earlier. All the major institutions are against what we're trying to do, right? The medical establishment, the educational establishment, the media establishment, all of these institutions are pushing against what we believe is necessary for our kids to hear and to learn. But it's a battle that we've taken on, and we've taken it on successfully. We're thrilled to be in the battle. We're thrilled to be in the battle with you, lifting up and helping, really rescue a generation of American youth. And providing for them a clear, an objective, beneficial pathway forward. And we find that when we have the opportunity to do that, they just really jump it. I mentioned to you as well this program outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, where we have programs running in different parts of the country. And there was a program near Knoxville where they took the kids through the program, and we have something called a pre-test, post-test. That is to say, kids fill out a little questionnaire before they go into our program, and they fill out a questionnaire after our program. And this blows me away. I sent you the graph if you're able to put it up later. But going into the program, you had 90% of the kids, 90% on the pre-form said to the question, I plan to save all sexual activity for marriage. Going into the program, 90% said no or I don't know. No or I don't know. Coming out of the program 8 weeks later, 8 weeks through our success sequence program, 8 weeks later, fill it out again. Exact flip. 90% of the kids said, yes, sign me up. That's what I want to do. I want to wait for marriage. I understand now that there are, see, it's not just going back to the contraception thing. It's not just about preventing a pregnancy. That's all that contraception can do. It's not disease prevention. While they're promoting contraception, no, but seriously, they bill it as disease prevention. But as births and pregnancies have been on the decline for 40 years now because of contraceptive increase, STD rates have gone through the roof because contraception is not disease. What does the word contraception mean? It's contra conception. It's against conception. It's designed to prevent the fertilization of the egg. It's not, my point is, it's not called contra STD. It's contra conception. And so what happens is, while they're all this time that they're pushing contraception on our kids, STD rates are going through the roof. And so it's preventing pregnancy, but it's not preventing disease. And then all the emotional heartache. Look, there's so much involved. As a friend of mine used to say, sex isn't just two bodies, it's two people. And there is social, emotional, mental. There's a lot involved in that. And so even if there isn't a pregnancy, even if there isn't a disease, there is a great emotional involvement in that process. And especially if there are multiple sexual partners. And I remember a lady at a teacher training seminar I did years ago down in Baton Rouge. And she said, Scott, how do we teach kids about the powerful emotional impact of sex? And she said, my husband and I, we've been married for 18 years and we've just never really been able to be intimate. She said this, because when I was a teenager, I was sexually promiscuous. I had sex with a lot of different people. I didn't get pregnant. I didn't get an STD, but something emotionally happened inside of me. And I've never been able to be intimate with my husband. He's frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm just telling you a true story of a lady who said to me, Scott, how can we help young people understand that sex is more than just the physical? That there's a spiritual, there's an emotional component to it that's very powerful and very real. And so this idea that contraception is sort of a answer, a cure-all for everything, that all we need to do is turn our schools into, pharmacies, pharmacological dispensaries. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. It's not medication. It's not condoms. It's helping them understand self-control, self-discipline, respect, responsibility. And all of the principles that we're teaching them in our program are going to make them better husbands, better wives, better citizens. And so these are important things to be teaching our kids if we want to restore American culture. We've got to take back the educational system, particularly in the area of sex education, which is at the center of the rot of our educational institutions.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. I think what you just talked about deserves probably a whole episode. I've been intending to have an expert on regarding actually birth control and how actually toxic and horrible it is for women's bodies. Yeah. But conversation for another time. But my point in saying that is you're exactly correct. The way that our public education system and Planned Parenthood, the broader culture, and certainly the sex ed movement treats pregnancy is as a disease. I mean, that's how they treat it. It's something to be avoided.
It's literally.
It's a bullet to be dodged. And even if you have to pump yourself full of toxins, so be it. But pregnancy is not a disease, and babies aren't tumors. This was proved recently, actually, Scott. I don't know if you remember this. In 2023 or late 2022, the FDA had actually labeled pregnancy as a disease in order to get emergency approval for RU-486. Wow. Because because with the overturning of Roe, RU-486 was being called into question, and there was a whole legal battle over it. It was going through the courts at the time about whether RU-486 should continue to be allowed. And so they literally said, no, that pregnancy has to be treated as a disease. And that's how we're going to get emergency approval to continue shipping the abortion pill all around the country. And so just to bolster what we're saying, this is not just our opinion. I mean, this has actually been labeled as such by some of our 3-letter agencies. And so what you're doing, brother, is coming back to the natural world, to human nature, to what we were intended for. to bolster, empower people to have strong marriages, to increase human
Yes.
flourishing and build a strong society and a strong family. So where can people learn more about your curriculum, which, I mean, is pretty popular? I mean, you're getting a lot of
Yeah.
success with this. Is that right?
Well, that's right. Thank you. And you know what? There's a lot of teachers out there that, like I said, they didn't choose to teach a Planned Parenthood program. It's just what was in the system. It's so embedded into the system. It's just sort of what you do, right? It's what they learn at teacher school. It's just everywhere. And so when we come in and sort of lay this out in front of them, they're like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. Like, when can I start? And so they can get more information. We've got two websites, nationalmarriagecampaign.com, nationalmarriagecampaign.com. And then if they want the curriculum, particularly for their schools, they can go to successsequence.com, successsequence.com. But again, we're just providing schools with an alternative. If what you want to teach is healthy and beneficial for your young people, we're here for you. That's what we do. We exist to service and equip parents. And parents, if you want to do this at home, you can certainly do this. You can get our materials online. We have online learning programs on our website, free videos, curriculum, all of that. Is to service you and to help you. And then you mentioned churches. Churches really do need to wake up and get on, take their rightful responsibility to properly educate kids on these things. And so it's not a matter of having an explicit sex education program in the church. It's not that. It's simply laying out a foundation for properly understanding sex in the context of marriage and why that's healthy and good. And we have to do that. We can't assume that our kids know that because culture is pounding them hard in the other direction.
Yep. Successsequence.com and nationalmarriagecampaign.com. As a lot of states are, especially run by a little bit more conservative leadership, are starting to kick out comprehensive sexuality education. They're starting to kick out some of the obscene education. They've kicked out, some of the critical race theory stuff. And the battle on the front lines for the last few years has been education. We've seen an explosion in homeschooling like I've never seen before. Something like 4 or 5-fold from what it was in, say, like 2012. It's something crazy. Because of frustration around the country by families in regards to education. and so this is such a valuable tool, and I would love to see, and I don't see why not, we couldn't start seeing this be adopted by states and go through state legislatures to be kind of hey, we need to abolish the Department of Education, but as much power as we can wield at the state level, this is incredible. And good job, Scott. Super proud of you. What else? Anything else you want to leave listeners with to connect with you and with your curriculum?
Yeah, I would say this. There's a lot to be discouraged about, but what I'm excited about, what gets me out of bed in the morning, is that we have a positive solution. We actually have an answer for what ails us. And again, the kids are never the problem. It's the gatekeepers, it's the smart people, right, who are blocking access for the kids. Once kids have the opportunity to hear these things, they're all in. They're all in. And so if you can get this to your kids, you're going to find tremendous response. And it's a positive solution to what ails us. And we're excited to be able to offer it. So, Seth, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the work that you're doing. And thanks for helping getting this message out there. I think it's really, really important. Thank you.
Yep, we got to take back education. If we're going to do that, we at least have to start with alternatives. So thank you for providing alternatives. We'll see you out there, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Seth.
Thanks for joining the show today, guys. Amazing conversation. Share this. Homeschoolers, co-op, Christian education, schools, Protestant, Catholic, or school boards. We got to get school boards and counties and school districts that are at fairly reasonable people to begin looking at better ways to educate our children in public schools. So provide this as a resource. Head on over to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Give the show a rating and review. Protect us by subscribing at Rumble, please. I've almost been digitally assassinated by YouTube, so go over to Rumble and press subscribe. And if you want to join the White Rose Resistance, go to thewhiterose.life, thewhiterose.life. Join us as an ally at $35 a month. You get your battle box in the mail. You join our digital community. We just released our pro-life masterclass featuring Jack Hibbs, Kirk Cameron, John Amanchukwu, Melissa Ohden, Anthony Levantino, the former abortionist, Monica Klein, a former Planned Parenthood sex educator. There you go. Myself and more, available to our allies at $35 a month or more on our donor platform. You get all that, and you get a free ticket to a huge event we're doing next June called The Last Stand in Southern California. Going to provide more to you about that soon. At $70 a month, we call you air support, and you join our book club, including everything else. And we read a book together, and we talk about it live on Zoom every other month. It's very, 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 very cool. We'd love for you to sign up. And if you want to host a screening of the groundbreaking documentary, The 1916 Project, go to the1916project.com, press host a screening, pre-order the book at the1916project.com or Amazon right now. Help this book go up the charts so the liberal establishment cannot ignore it. It is a tool for you, your family, your children, the next generation in the church to recognize what we're up against and a game plan on how to fight back. Thank you guys for joining the show today. Until next time, I'm Seth Gruber, and this is The Seth Gruber Show.